The Cincinnati Bengals, they got a jolt of energy. Big jolt, getting the Dexter Lawrence trade from the Giants. I'm still lukewarm about that deal, but Bengals fans are geeked. They're like, oh, we spent some money on defense. We got some potential. We're not going to be a bottom 3 defense in the league for the first time in years. It's just weird to say Joe Burrow's missed the playoffs 3 straight years. Like, you don't do that with superstar quarterbacks in your prime. Dexter Lawrence apparently is going to help the defense. I know the numbers were good, and people are very excited. I have a hard time believing they're going to make a leap to be like a league average defense, Colin.
No, they're not. But I disagree with Nick Wright. I think when you're the worst defense in the league, you have an unhappy quarterback, you are in a division with well-run Baltimore, Aaron's probably still going to be at Pittsburgh. I didn't have a problem with it. It's not a great defensive tackle draft, and they need it. The kid at Clemson's pretty good, but it's not a great defensive tackle. There's no defensive tackle close to Dexter Lawrence. Now you're going to have to pay him, and he's a good kid. I got nothing against Dexter Lawrence. I think he's a very good player. I'd love to have him on my team, but I think Cincinnati had to make a statement. And I think they did, and they're culturally very rigid. They don't make, this is the first time since like 1989 the Bengals don't have a first-round pick. So that's a big move for Cincinnati. That's way out of character for them. So I'm going to applaud Cincinnati for doing something that I know is terribly uncomfortable, which is paying a lot of money to a player and making a big swing in the first round. I'm not going to knock on him for that because you know what? He'll be the best defensive player they have. Burrow's been ticked off for years, and it's hard for teams and cultures and people to do things they don't normally do. So it was a swing by the Bengals, and I'm not going to criticize it.
The best defensive player they had, remember Trey Hendrickson led the league, or maybe it was the AFC in sacks? What did that get them? This isn't enough for me. I would have kept the number 10 pick.
I'm not saying they're winning the Super Bowl.
Can they get to the playoffs? Listen, if Burrow missed the playoffs 4 years in a row,
I thought they were going to stay where they're at and draft Caleb Downs because they could save airfare. That's how literal I think of the Bengals.
Wow.
All right. So, this is one of those enjoyable things that tends to happen whenever a major story like this breaks. I get to make a video, we get to discuss it. And then I check the comments, and since I actually do read through them and go through them, I get a real sense of how everyone is feeling. Especially the people I'm actually talking to, the ones actually watching these videos. And it's really cool, because I told you guys when the news first came out, it was over the weekend, so I wasn't making videos. So I saw other people's content. I was reading the comment sections of other posts, and I just noticed very strongly, and again, not on this channel, but on other places, very loud opinions like, Giants crushed it. Giants crushed it. Bengals disaster. Bengals disaster. Bengals disaster. And then I shared my own take and all that, and I read the comments, and it really does seem like the Bengals are actually pretty happy about this as well. My previous take was all about short-term versus long-term, and I tried really hard to emphasize the difference. If we're talking about the big, long-term picture, it's not necessarily my favorite move. But in the short term, it's an awesome move, it's a great move, and it's way more secure to do something like this than to keep the number 10 pick or something like that. So, a player like Dexter Lawrence will make this defense better. This defense has been terrible. But just like how having a great number 1 wide receiver opens the door for a number 2 wide receiver, or having a great running back does certain things, you have these same effects on defense. So yes, adding a Dexter Lawrence to your team also has a synergistic effect. Does it skyrocket the defense to top 10 in the NFL? That's about more than just players. That's also about coaching, having the right coach in the building doing the right things. Looking at last season, the Bengals were, of course, a mess again. Joe Burrow goes down. You're playing a bunch of your games with Jake Browning, who was a mess, right? I don't really know what their defensive rankings from last year mean to me. Honestly, they mean pretty much nothing. I'll be straight with you. And I've always talked about this too, when your offense is a mess, it's really hard for the defense to bring it, because defense is so much more effort-based than offense. Offense has scheme and all that on defense as well, no denying that, but it's just a little bit more. Put it this way, Andy Reid could scheme me open on a field, right? You can't scheme me to sack Patrick Mahomes. That's just not going to happen. So there's so much more effort involved, and sheer strength, speed, agility, etc. pretty much the definition of the combine. But it's really hard to bring it when your team is a mess, when your offense is a mess, and you don't really know what you're playing for. So anytime a team is a mess and the offense is a mess, using previous defensive rankings as a baseline doesn't mean too much to me. But obviously, we know the defense has been bad. And even the fact that Joe Burrow hasn't made the playoffs 3 years in a row, while he was injured, 2024 was the true year he was playing, and he was awesome, he was great, he was unbelievable, and the defense was a mess, and then they obviously didn't make the playoffs. So you've got to look at it moving forward from 2026 onward, right now. I'm not focused on 23. Not focused on 24. Not focused on 25. And the Bengals are in that situation where they have to win. They have to be competitive. They have to be contenders. They have to put Joe Burrow in a position to be able to win, to be great for this team. Anything short of that, anything is on the table. So a move like this, I agree with Colin. I appreciate when teams take big swings. I remember the Atlanta Falcons made a trade last draft. I originally wasn't a big fan of it, what they ended up giving up, yada yada. And it was in the comment section that I realized, I always talk, about wanting teams to take a big swing. And Travis Rochett brought that up, and he said, we always talk about how we want to see teams take a big swing. So if they do it, you've got to support it. You've got to love it. And it's like, yeah, that's true. And I went back and made another video and said, I thought about it, and I actually really do appreciate the move. I shouldn't say I really like it, but I appreciate them taking a swing. Now, ironically, I don't know if it actually ended up working out for the Falcons, because things got a little weird over there. But I do appreciate it. And this is what Colin was saying, they're taking a swing. They're making a move. They're trying to improve. They're trying to do the things. What always drives me crazy about the conversation around the Cincinnati Bengals is people saying, oh, well, it's Joe Burrow's fault. He's the one who wanted Ja'Marr Chase and T. Higgins to get paid. And again, that narrative, because that's the one thing I kept seeing in the comment section, it's such nonsense. First off, they had these problems before they had to pay their receivers. They had these problems before they even had to pay Joe Burrow. And also, if paying Ja'Marr Chase and T. Higgins and doing all that stuff was the wrong move, of course Joe Burrow is going to say, this is what I want. I promise you Patrick Mahomes wasn't championing for the Chiefs to move on from Tyreek Hill. I promise you. And yet, they did. So you can't blame the player. If a quarterback says, this is what I want, it's up to the team to figure out, okay, do we give it to him or not? We're the ones running the team. We're the ones building the team. If Joe Burrow were an actual GM or a player GM, and it was truly his decision, then sure, we could blame him. That's not how football works. I guarantee you Matthew Stafford wasn't thrilled about moving on from Cooper Kupp. He probably wasn't saying, get Cooper Kupp out of here. Don't pay him any money. He's too slow and not good enough. They probably said, hey, we're going to move on from Cooper Kupp. And he probably said, man, I don't want that. And they said, no, it's fine. We're going to get Devontae Adams now. We're going to actually upgrade here. You might not see it now, but we've got it. And it's just like, okay. So you can't put it on Joe Burrow's shoulders. To blame Joe Burrow for that is just absurd. And other teams have found ways to get multiple weapons and multiple receivers and still build great defenses, and draft and develop. Literally, the Philadelphia Eagles did that. The 49ers had no problems paying lots of players. The Rams have figured out ways to pay lots of players. Everyone has found ways to do it. Except for the Bengals. So I take issue with that. That was one of the things I saw a lot, because I kind of said, this franchise needs to step up to support Joe Burrow, and people said, oh dude, Joe Burrow's to blame. But no, that take drives me absolutely insane. Really does. So I appreciate a move like this. I really do. And the reality is that the defense doesn't need to be a top 10 defense. I talk about this a lot. It just can't be a liability. When you have such superpowers, whether on defense, whether on offense, whether in the passing game, in the run game, depending on how we're slicing this up, as long as you just don't have a liability, you're in a great spot. Like C.J. Stroud, unfortunately for the Houston Texans in the playoffs, he ended up being a liability. I don't think he's a liability as a whole, but he was a liability in those games, and they lost. If he simply was not a liability, they win. And they would go on to the Super Bowl, and then again, who knows? I shouldn't say they'd go to the Super Bowl. But they'd be in a great position to get there. If he was just not a liability in those moments, they win. If the Cincinnati Bengals defense was just simply not a liability, of course they're in a position to beat the Ravens, the Chiefs, the Bills, the Eagles, the 49ers. Of course they are. And especially if the game gets reduced down to the fourth quarter, 3.5 minutes to go, up by 3, down by 4, you've got Joe Burrow now, and you've got that offense. You can either ice the game, convert first downs, melt the clock, or come from behind. You are in a fantastic position to win, as long as the defense isn't just an absolute liability. And even if the defense is getting torched, we even saw an amazing defense like the Seattle Seahawks have a lot of points piled on them against the Los Angeles Rams. Doesn't matter, because the offense can hang. Joe Burrow can hang. Same thing with the Rams going up against the Seahawks. Sam Darnold and company are torching that defense, doesn't matter, because Matthew Stafford and company can hang. That's how it works. So as long as you're just not a liability every single game, game after game after game, you're in a great spot. So it's not a matter of them needing to be this top 5 elite shutdown defense, hold Lamar and Allen and Stafford to 10 points and blah blah blah. Just don't be a liability. Just don't be a liability, and you're a contender. You're in the mix. Again, just look at 2024. And I know I said it earlier, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but it's still the example. If you just weren't a liability, you are in a fantastic position to do damage, to do absolute damage. But you were a liability, so you didn't even make the playoffs. There are so many moments right now around the league where it's like, if you're just not a liability. And it's not like every team, right? You can't just say that about every team. Sometimes there are certain expressions or ways to look at things, you could say that about any team. And it's true. Football, all sports, is very generic, right? Establish the run, get to the quarterback, rebound, get back on defense. You've got to hit your threes, your open shots. Yeah, for sure. You've got to have great pitching and great hitting. Okay, cool. Right? Yeah, okay, got it. But sometimes it's not like that for all these teams. I couldn't say, oh, the Minnesota Vikings, if their quarterback just simply wasn't a liability, they could be a Super Bowl contender, because I don't think that was the case. I think they would have been a better team if they didn't have a liability at quarterback or if they just had consistent quarterback play, but they weren't a Super Bowl contender. The Eagles, their offense was a bit of a mess, but there wasn't a true liability there where I'm just like, oh, if you just got a slightly better version of that, they're going to win the Super Bowl. No, they had their work cut out for them last year. Same for the Chiefs. Same for the Bills. Same for a lot of other teams. But with the Bengals, just don't be a liability, boom, elite. The Texans, again, we had a front row seat in the playoffs. If they just got average quarterback play, they're winning. Their defense was too elite. The defense was too special. There you go, boom. That's all you needed. Just don't be a liability in the majority of moments, and you're golden. Golden. Again, couldn't say that about the Commanders. Couldn't say that about the Ravens. Couldn't say that about the Steelers. And so on. But we are able to say that about the Bengals. And so a move like this hopefully puts them in a position to just not be a liability. Just don't be a liability. And that's why it's an embarrassment and so frustrating, because it's just like, how did you do this? And don't tell me it's because you paid Jamar Chase and T. Higgins that you built defenses that are a liability. Don't tell me that. That's nonsense. That's absolute utter nonsense. Robert Saleh got more out of his defense when that team was just second and third stringers with the 49ers. We saw what Fangio was able to do. Again, there were certain players the Eagles picked up in 2024 that the Cincinnati Bengals absolutely, positively, undeniably, 1000% could have gotten. Didn't. That's their fault. And these weren't superstars. These weren't, oh well, of course everybody would want them, no. They found the value. Not only in the draft, but also in free agency. And it was like, yeah. They had the right coach. They had the right eyes. They made the right moves. And because of that, that directly led to a Super Bowl and a Super Bowl win. So again, you can't hide behind the money in those moments. You just can't. You absolutely, positively can't. And so a move like this is a concrete move. It's a concrete move. And so I appreciate that. And it'll be a lot easier to judge because it was a swing. It was a chance. Some of the moves the Eagles have made, and that's how the Eagles have been able to be consistent for a pretty long time. Same with the Kansas City Chiefs, they're able to take swings in a way where even if they miss, they didn't waste a 10th overall pick or something. The Eagles going out and getting whoever, it didn't matter. If that didn't work out, obviously it would have hurt them, but they didn't sacrifice the 11th overall pick in a draft where it's like, oh man, you wasted that. And so it's finding those types of swings you can take where if you miss, no big deal, not the worst thing. And if you hit, it's like, yeah. It's multiplication. It's a double bounce on a trampoline. But yeah, I made a few Bengals videos recently talking about how the Bengals need to find their way back to being relevant. How it's just so disappointing to see who the Bengals have been, considering who they have. And just how truly special and great Joe Burrow, and therefore the Bengals, can be. If you just start making better decisions and build better teams, you are truly an elite organization. You're able to be elite. Don't care who the owner is, don't care who the GM is, don't care who the coach is. You're in a position to do special things. We saw it at the beginning of Joe Burrow's career, when the liabilities were few and far between. They still had issues with the offensive line, whatever, but yet were still able to overcome that. So I'm pulling for a move like this to work. And just realize that the Bengals, they just need to get rid of their liabilities. Get rid of the liabilities, and you are in business. And actually, Colin said, he's like, I'm not saying they're going to go to the Super Bowl or something. And it's like, well, you've got to find a way to do that because you have Joe Burrow as your quarterback. You've got great pieces there. You have that opportunity. And I will say this coming year, I think this year is going to be crazy. I think it's going to be more competitive than ever, and I think we're going to see a lot of teams floating around 11, 12 wins or so. That's going to be the main cutoff. I will say if it feels like everyone's kind of just crushed together, if it's how I think it is, and there's no true elite separation where you have to get through a juggernaut or two, I will say this, if the defense is able to be, again, not a liability, but then also, dare I say, actually help out a little bit, and they can get to like the 15th ranking or something, I'll put it around 15, top 15 defense. Just middle of the pack, nothing crazy, but also not terrible either. I could see them being a Super Bowl contender. Because again, you're just asking your defense to just keep you in a game, get a strategic 3-and-out, not have the score automatically go up to 30 plus, get a nice little stop, a turnover, good. Field position. Just keep it within range. And now, no matter who you're going up against, I really, really like my chances with Joe Burrow. And maybe you're going up against Josh Allen, Bo Nix, Drake May, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar, it's just like, okay. The game is in the balance. The game is tied. Both defenses are kind of doing what they need to do. Who are you betting on to get it done? Ja'Marr Chase, T. Higgins, Joe Burrow? That's a bad bet? I don't think so. Those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Cincinnati Bengals? How are you feeling now, especially going into the draft? Obviously the first round is always the most exciting and the most interesting for everyone. How do you feel now that you don't really have that feeling going into the draft of who are we going to draft? Oh, we can get so-and-so? It's just like, you burned it. You did it. You exchanged it for a player. How does that all land for you guys right now? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get into some discussions, let's get into some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. Please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you be part of it. I want to build something that we all generally feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be a part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, it really does help with visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.